Howdy, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We're still waiting for the other projects to hop in and join us, so we're going to give it some time. But we'll be trying to start this at either 11:05 or 11:10. But till then, please be patient, and thanks for joining early. Hey, Jen, how's it going?
Hey buddy, I'm all good, all good.
Glad to hear it. Thanks for hopping in.
Hey, thanks buddy. It's pretty it's pretty late.
Yeah, what time is it for you over there?
It just hit midnight, buddy.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Burn the midnight oil. We like to hear it.
Yeah, we gotta do it, right? Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes, sir. We're still waiting for the affiliates from Bang Bang Gaming to hop in, so we'll give it a little bit more time. But thanks for joining us. Appreciate you taking some time through your night, and we're gonna keep this up to an hour long, so it won't be terribly long. So
No worries, buddy.
yeah.
No worries.
Jin, were you affected by FTX at all?
No man. FTX is not really huge here in Asia. We are mostly on Binance. So yeah, I'm pretty safe actually.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I
Yeah,
know a
but
ton of people that are affected. Yeah, dude, it's a whole fucking shit show right now, to be honest.
it is. But I think, whether we're affected or not, right? Like, whether we are directly affected or not, I think it's still pretty absurd, man, to have someone such a big influence to the crypto community to do something like that, right? This really shows a lot.
Yeah, dude. I think there's only two words. Fuck Sam.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, CZ had a space just now. Were you there? Were you listening to that space just now?
Which one? The one with Mario?
I don't know. I think CZ and Binance, he was there answering a lot of questions. He was like some 45,000 people were in that space.
Oh yeah, I saw it, but we had another meeting that we had to hop on, so we didn't. Yeah, we didn't get on that. Was it good?
Yeah, he answered a lot of stuff. Like, he was just opening the floor to anyone, and you know, it's pretty nice to hear from someone like, especially from himself, right? Being such a busy man, and you don't really hear it from him except from tweets. Um, yeah, it's pretty nice to just listen to someone give their thoughts about the whole FTX stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are there any insights that he's given on the space?
I think the big thing he popped out was just saying that like um as we get into FTX, he was just like because people are asking funny questions like do you think that his post started a whole FTX shit show and stuff. And he was like, I'm just being transparent here, right? Like if I'm selling my stuff, I'm letting you guys know. And if you guys want to follow, it's entirely up to you guys, but you can't, right now blame me for like the whole FTX shit show, right? Just because I posted it, just because of me being want to be transparent. So I think that was something that I felt was right, because there are people asking him whether he should be responsible to pay back the guys who lost money in FTX. I think that's just pretty absurd.
Yeah, I mean, he knows what he did, so I'm not saying FTX has no fault at all, and obviously FTX is at fault here, but it's hard to imagine a guy make such a big move without and having a net positive towards, I mean, in the long term, a net positive for him and his exchange. So I'm a
Yeah,
skeptic.
if I can chime in real quick, I think it is. There's definitely multiple parties to be blamed for this instance, and it is terrible for the overall ecosystem, in my opinion, at least from like a consumer confidence perspective. But also the fact of the matter is, at least from what I've been reading online, is that he was like creating ways to get around like the accounting audits to make sure that everything that he was doing was actually legal. And instead, by circumnavigating those like safeguards, was able to send in cash from FTX to Alameda without necessarily going through the proper safeguards, and that in itself is a crime. So that, in my opinion, is something that I would have to stand behind as being shady and something that it was 100% his own fault for doing. But I think it's still very interesting because the story hasn't played out yet, and so we're still waiting to see the whole show. Um, but overall, I think it's been a very interesting few days. So we'll just have to wait and see for the rest of the information to come out to the general public. I'm sure there's a lot going on in the background that we aren't privy to yet. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I do agree, right? Like, regardless whether, whose fault it is. I mean, obviously, having FTX doing such a thing, I mean, they're definitely at fault, but, regardless on that, like, the ripple effect it has on the entire crypto space, especially with funding and trust, especially, trying to get trust of people to come into the space, as, it's going to be pretty damn tough now, right?
yeah, and I'm also very interested in seeing how regulation kind of comes in on the tail end of this. Obviously, obviously, this goes to show that there needs to be more regulation, but like what type of regulation that is and how like positive or negative that is for the overall ecosystem is going to be something that we're going to have to also wait to see. But I really hope that it's progressive regulation and not something that inhibits us and the opportunity for us to grow as an ecosystem and as a technology. So we'll definitely have to see with that as well. But again, like it's really tough when this could have been easily avoided if he just would have taken the loss on Alameda and instead and didn't try to like raise the valuation and continue to allude to the fact that it wasn't failing when it actually was. So I think that's where I have a hard time digesting all of this. You know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are asking CZ the same question, like, like with so many big boys invested in FTX, right? Like, didn't you guys, have your due diligence and stuff? And, I think in that scenario, like, I don't know, I just feel like a lot of guys are just trying to find a way around it. Like, hey, if like people like Sequoia and, Binance, were caught in this, like, it's nothing. I mean, you can't really blame me for getting caught into it as well, right? Like, if the big boys trusted them, so we just trusted them as well. It's those kind of stuff where I feel, people are just trying to find a way to ease their pain in a way.
100%. It's just really tough when like you think that something like the number two exchange, I think they were the number two, right? The number two exchange, number two or three exchange. You think that they would have at least more, more
Yeah,
of
they
a
were number
positive
two.
impact or a stable structure. Yeah, you think they'd have more of a stable structure behind them, but the fact that they like disappeared like almost overnight is very worrisome for the overall ecosystem. Like that's so crazy for me to see and hear. Like I remember like I was on a flight and then I heard all the news break out and then I like landed and it was like wow, what just happened? That was like a 12-hour flight, and it all changed so quickly. But I guess that's just a testament to the ecosystem we're in and how early it
Yeah.
is for us still, right? We're still very early, and this is just kind of growing pains, but it's definitely something that's set us back a little bit. But we'll see. Positive mindset. Fingers crossed. I'm still happy to be
Breakpoint
here.
Breakpoint ruined everything. It's all Breakpoint's fault.
Breakpoint was a good time. Breakpoint was really cool. That's like one of the things that definitely reinvigorated myself personally, was like being able to like see who was building what everyone was doing, and just chatting with people in the ecosystem was super refreshing. Jin, did you make it? Did you make it out to Breakpoint at all? Oh, he's a listener now. He's not a speaker. Give him a second to hop back in. All right, Jin, did you make it out to Breakpoint at all, or no? Did your team?
No, man. It was like we didn't. But some of the teams in Philippines right now for the Web3 blockchain gaming stuff.
Oh, nice. There's something happening in the Philippines.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that
There's
about?
a whole blockchain Web3 blockchain space. I think it's organized by YGG and Blockchain Space. So yeah, it's a 5 days pure Web3 gaming conference going on in the Philippines.
Well, that's really cool. I guess while we still wait for the Bang Bang people to hop in, what kind of like exposure are you guys having in there, and kind of how did you get involved with that um, event?
Cut off for a bit. I didn't hear the last part of the question.
How did you get involved with the event?
I think because like our partners, we've been partnering up with a couple of people, especially from the Philippines. So, Playdex told about this, and Breeder DAO is one of our partners as well. And they're like, "Hey, are you coming up for this event?" And we're like, "What event is going on?" And then they showed us the link, and then yeah, so some of the boys were down. Um, we wanted everyone to be there, but then, it's pretty expensive for everyone to fly down, especially on the company budget, right? Especially as of now, we're just trying to keep as much, as we can to build out the product. So yeah, we just sent two people over, just to see what's going on. But, I don't know, that was prior to the whole FTX stuff. And then like, I heard that a couple of guys weren't going over already just because of they were involved in FTX. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's tough, but at least you guys were able to make this some of an appearance there. So congratulations to you guys. And that's pretty cool. That'll actually lead into a pretty good segue in the future. But let's just continue the conversation now, since I don't think Bang Bang is going to be able to join us. So I guess we'll just hop into kind of our Twitter Space session, if that's all right with everyone here.
Yeah, I'm great.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening and tuning in live. For those of you in the audience, for those of you listening to the recording, howdy. But let's just get started off really quick and just kind of like, could you give us an introduction around yourself, Jin, and kind of what you're doing and your project?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Jin. I'm from Impact Realm. So currently we are building off um, I would say like an event platform for the Web3 space. Prior to this, we were started off as an execute, and you know, moving on from there, we found there was a lot of pain points happening in the space. We weren't a very big guild, right? We had about 500 scholars, 500-ish. And at that point of time, me and my partners were thinking that, there isn't a place to go to actually, listen to the new games coming out, or, actually really knowing, any new projects coming out. Because here in Asia, I mean, I'm based in Malaysia, so here in Asia, that Twitter is not like our first go-to social media. We're always on Facebook and Instagram. So, not being a non-Twitter user, I'm rarely on Twitter as much as I am now, because I'm full-time in Web3. But we were rarely introduced to new games and stuff. And every time we got introduced to new games, at that point of time, a lot of games were like, hey, if you're not a big guild, you come second. And after we spoke to a couple of smaller guilds, we're saying that, hey, if there could be a place where, all these AMAs could be, all this information about new games, new DApps, upcoming events could be hosted on one place, that would be great, right? Just for the entire community. And we started working on that idea. And yeah, right now we are at a phase of we're building out the entire platform. So we've been partnering up with a couple of companies, building out metaverses to host events, and in the future, any game or any project, right, like who wants to tap into, and create an event and invite people to come and listen, they could just do it straight through our platform. Um, we were started off as doing Discord and Twitter as well, and then moving on to a couple of Web3 metaverses who are lucky enough to give us a space. So in the future, in the very near future, I would say, right, if an event want to do, if a project wants to do that event in the metaverse, we could actually facilitate that as well. So yeah, that's basically what we are doing.
That's super interesting, actually. I love that being able to incorporate kind of Web3 in your outreach for your community is a super cool thing. I guess I had some more questions kind of around like the structure of your team and how you guys came together. Could you kind of tell me how many members that you have on your core team and like how did you guys come together, connect, and to actually create Impact Realm? Like, what was the idea behind it and how?
So I was in crypto since 2016. So I know at that point of time, there wasn't many people who were, it was just buying and selling Bitcoin, and it's that kind of stuff, right? And everything seems a little bit shady. And one of my friends who just introduced me to crypto, and like, hey, this whole blockchain stuff, and even me, I was a bit skeptical, right? Coming from a very Web2 financial background, and I'm like, you know, so I just bought some into it, and then I started listening and understanding a little bit more about crypto. And then I think the big thing happens during the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, especially here in Asia, we were locked down for about a good 2 years. So it was pretty much stay at home for 2 years, right? And a lot of businesses couldn't open, and so the start of the pandemic, it was just things were very uncertain. So I was talking to a couple of friends, like, hey, like what's going on in the space now, like in crypto and stuff like that. And besides the DeFi and stuff, and they're like, hey, there's this thing called Axie where we could play game and make some money. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm free, right? So let's just try this out. So I bought my first Axie team for uh, pretty much under $50. That was, yeah, so you could kind of tell the timeline I was in Axie. So I bought it a little bit under $50, and then like in 2 or 3 months, it just boomed, right? And it went super crazy. And that's when two of us, just me and one of the co-founders as well, we were like, hey, let's start this whole guild thing, and then we didn't know it was a whole business altogether. So we started getting people in, and end of the day, three of us, three of the guys, the co-founders of Impact Realm. So we happen to be, real life friends for over 10 years. And it just happened that all three of us are in crypto, and all three had nothing better to do in during the pandemic, and then it started there. So right now, there are three co-founders, and then we have a team of 9 guys in total, 3 part-timers and 6 full-timers.
Oh, that's a pretty cool. That's a pretty interesting story. I feel like we've seen a lot of like projects kind of come out of the coronavirus era into the Web3 space. So it lines up pretty well. But so that's a pretty large team, right? Where'd you go about like sourcing beyond your co-founders? How'd you start picking up other like workers along the way to kind of support your vision? And like, how did you make sure that they kind of aligned with that said vision?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, like, I would say that, prior to this, we were all just traders, right? Like we just buy and sell Bitcoin and Ethereum and stuff like that. And, we didn't make it into a job. And just happened that one of my partner, he he transitioned into Web3 full time like a year prior to the pandemic. So, at that point of time, we were chatting, and, I was asking about how it's working in Web3 and stuff like that. And when we started off the gaming guild, he had a couple of contacts in the space, but the three main guys who have been with us are actually our scholars. So when we started off the guild, right, at that point of time, it was just meant for friends and family. Like, we heard about all this, scams and banning of accounts. So we're like, hey, you know what? We're just gonna buy like 5 accounts, test it out, give it to our close friends that we actually know in real life.
to play it out. And so my first three scholars are actually full time with me now. Since they're in the community from day one, especially like when we started Exi, we didn't know what was going on. Like, it's a brand new game, right? So we just started like thinking about strategies and stuff, and then we started doing the whole Discord from scratch up. At that point of time, we didn't really use Discord as much. So, we started off the whole Discord from scratch up, how to segregate stuff on Discord, how to run, let's do some marketing. Where do we, find people to join our scholarship? So they've been there since from the very day one, and till today they're with us. So I'm pretty happy that the six full timers, besides the three co-founders, the other three guys, we brought them into crypto, but they've been here for the last 2 years in a way.
Okay, that's super cool. I guess could you tell me a little bit more about like the structure behind a guild? Like for those of us who don't necessarily know what a guild is, what is a Web3 gaming guild, and like what is that structure different from like let's say a traditional like Discord community or like a social media network that you like communicate with? Like what is a guild?
So I mean, if we were in Web 2 gaming, right? Like like I used to play. I still play Dota, once in a while. Like now I don't have that much time. But at a point of time, the name of the guild was meant to be like a place for like-minded people to come along and share, strategies and stuff like that. And in my head, before I started the whole Axie guild, that was my thinking, right? Just get a couple of people in, let's learn about new strategies, new cards and stuff, and then it became a whole business. So I think in Web3 the word guild is has a different meaning to it. Like in Web3, most guilds becomes like a business, right? Like they are the people forking out the money to buy the NFTs, and whether you would call it players or scholars, these are the guys that provides the NFT for people to come into the space to play a certain game, whether it's Axie or Cyball or whatever game that is out there. So I think the big difference here is in the guild, being a guild in Web3, right? There's a little bit of there's a hierarchy in a way. Like the guild leaders is the up the top of the food chain or the top of the pyramid, right? And then trickles down to the community and the moderators running the whole guild. But essentially, I think Web3 guilds become more of a business compared to traditional guilds, right? So I think that's the biggest difference between like how guilds are run or how guilds are meant in the Web2 space compared to the Web3 space.
Gotcha. Okay. That kind of opened up another question in my head too. So then, what does that business structure look like then for a guild? Like, how do you operate as a business?
So for us, how we start off with Axie, right? So Axie would be the best example. So we started counting down, like we started studying the entire structure of the game, and then understanding that how much it costs to buy a team, right? So when I bought my team, it was like under $50, and at that point of time, SLP was at I think 18 cents. So I'm like, so I just had to do a math, right? And if the math makes sense, it's going to be investable. So we start off with 5, and then we moved to 10, and then up that change. So it was just more of like we buying the NFT at a certain price. We let the players play, and how much they earn, we took a cut out of it. So it became more like a profit sharing model, right, for people who are unable to buy their own NFTs. Because at the peak of the NFT gaming space, things were getting pretty expensive, right? To enter a game costs you $500-$600. I think that's pretty much as well in the States, but even in Asia, that's probably someone's full-time salary just to start playing a game, right? So we come in to fill out the hole, we fork out the money, and we teach them how to play the game, and how much I earn from the game, we take a certain percentage.
Gotcha. Okay. So then, how would you go about sourcing members to join your guild? I guess like, is it just like open to anyone to apply and join, or like do you go out and advocate and look for people specifically? Like, what makes a trusted guild member that you want to accept into your platform, and like how do you vet them, right? Because like, I'm assuming that the structure is set where you send these individuals the NFT, these guild members these NFTs, and then they play the game, and then you have to rely on them to transfer back the percentage that you're allotted. Like how do you make sure that this person is trustworthy, and how do you make sure that this is someone that you want in your guild?
Yeah, so prior to that, um, before we go into finding the players, right? The most important thing that I think me and my team, when we look into games to invest in, like we just invested in Genopads. Like that, this was like a good 8 months ago, right? And I think at that point of time, XZ was the only game out there, right? And everything was super manual. So we knew that it was super manual. But as of now, the changes has been like, has this game provided a good management system? How robust is the good management system? How can I do this with this system? Can I do that with that system? Because at that point of time, finding players wasn't hard, right? Compared to now, at that point of time, as long as you had an NFT, anyone's willing to play the game. So games were I would say pushed to provide some sort of tooling system for the guilds to be able to handle their guild a little bit more I would say to simplify the way the guilds are handled. When it came to Axie, I think one of the things we actually did that most people didn't do, which I knew that people didn't do, was we require them to take a selfie with with an ID, right? Because we heard there were so many scams going on in Axie. There were so many fake accounts and accounts were getting banned. So what we actually did was we actually asked for them to actually upload a picture of themselves with an ID to show that these guys truly exist. Obviously, that doesn't say that 100%. We don't have people who cheat. We did caught people who cheat. Luckily, we didn't get banned on any accounts. But another way that we structure it was just say we give 50% to a scholar, right? And if these guys win our guild, and if they introduce someone to us, from I would say like their friends or whatsoever, we give an additional 5% on top of that to the introducer. So in a way, like the introducer is responsible for what happens with their friends, because if their friends screw up and they don't get to play, they don't make the extra 5%, right? So in a way, we make it you could bring your friends, but you are responsible for your friends. Another thing that we did as well was every month we took out a certain percentage. So for example, if we do a 50-50 cut, and if just say the guy makes $1,000, right? Just for example, and he's supposed to get 500. Out of that 500, we take $100 and we put it aside as I would say like a buy-in, right? So if anything happens to the account, we do not give you back the $100. But on the day that you leave and nothing happens to the account, we return back the $100 back to you. So at a point of time, we felt that although that is way past those times, but monetary value, it was very important, especially when most of the guys are from Philippines and Indonesia and even in Vietnam, where they were so, I would say, they were so motivated by money. We found that by doing this, actually most of the guys were pretty disciplined in the way that things were done, right? Because they know that every month I'm supposed to make an extra $100, but I don't get it now just because it's like an insurance, right? But on the day that I give my account back, I'm entitled to get all this back. So we have a back end system where we calculate like every month how much are we supposed to get back from guys, and anyone who's leaving, we give them back the money as well. So it's not like we keep it. So it's just more of we hold it down until the day that they don't want to play anymore, and we return back all the money.
Gotcha. So they put up like the $100 collateral, and just to ensure that you get the account back. Okay, that's an interesting structure. That makes sense too, though. You want to make sure that you have everything like safe and sound, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So then, but you just mentioned that you were having a hard time finding players now. Is that because of like the value in Axie isn't quite as high as it was before? Like, what's changed to make that difficult for you? Just the overall sentiment around crypto play to earn games, or why is it
I
harder?
think I mean the way that play to earn has been advertised, right, to most of us, even for me, was that you could make money playing games. So I think when the earning drops, we need to start to move people from play to earn to play and earn. And right now there's free to play and play and own and all this kind of stuff, right? But essentially the guys who are there for the money, they're no longer around, right? Just because like, hey, if I could be spending an hour working at McDonald's and earn $3, why should I be playing a game and working for you for, you know, I'll say 30 cents or 40 cents an hour, right? So it's just more of a cost opportunity. But the big thing that we actually realized that most of the guys who were in Exi didn't enjoy the game. It was a grind, right? You know, it was a grind for money. It's a job. So when we actually sit down and we're like, hey, you know, if I gave you 100% of all the earnings, right, back to you, will you still play Axie? They're like, you know, they told me, sir, it's not fun. It wasn't really fun, right? We're just playing for the money. Like, to be super transparent, we're playing for the money, right? You know, if I were to play a game, I'd rather play League of Legends or play, you know, whatever game, and it's, you know, higher graphics and better, and I could play from my phone, right? So, I think post Axie, as people start to try to create games with a more balanced economy or a lesser earning structure, for most of the games that I feel that had really succeeded in a way, like Genopads or I won't say Step Band is a success on my behalf. That's just my thinking. But if it doesn't require me any other any time, you know, I could just walk around and make some money. You know, I'm already walking, so why not, right? But if I have to sit down and like play the game and learn the game, I probably would not unless the money is really lucrative. So as of now, like where we are, most of our Exi scholarships, we actually, I think we dropped from like 500 to like 60, right? And the only reason we are keeping the Exis is just we have the NFTs, right? We don't want to waste it. There are certain rental protocols that we have put the NFTs there to rent out to some people, and yeah, and especially with how the games have been evolving with Exi, right? You know, now there's rules and charms, and you got to spend money every other season to upgrade. You know, most guilds that, you know, if it's not an individual player, most guilds are not willing to put that kind of money because, you know, next season, you know, things might change, right? And whatever you have bought now, might just drop in value. So it's either super competitive, or, you know, they're just playing for the fun of it. That's basically what I think.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I feel like that we had a huge issue beforehand where like a lot of the play to earn games were like specifically made to grind out. But I think we're seeing a new age of games come out, at least from the recent showcases of the games at Breakpoint on the Solana side of things, that games are building kind of the entertainment value first and then introducing the earning mechanics second, which I think is a very positive sign for kind of the overall ecosystem where we're headed. I think it's important for people to be entertained and then also be able to make money on top of that is an added value. The way NFTs should kind of be for the play to earn or Web3 gaming ecosystem, in my opinion. But that's super cool. I mean, that makes sense too. So then what like qualifies a game now for you that you want to kind of like build your guild around or into? It's obviously beyond just the grind mechanics now, right? Is it also like, how do you gauge the fun level or the interest level? Do you ask the members in your community, or how do you tell what do you want to get into next?
So right now, at least through Impact Realm. So like Impact Realm has split into two. We have Impact Realm as the event platform, and then we have Impact Guild, right? So most of the games who have reached out to us now, they're reaching out to Impact Realm, and, you know, a game that does not have an MVP to try or does not have a model that we could try, we typically stay out of it. Um, Another thing that, and this has just happened like 2 weeks ago or so, that, you know, we were talking to one of the guilds, and they told us that they could get us like 50 Ruby passes for big time, and we are like, oh great, right? So we open up to the community and we say that, hey, you know, we have 50 big time Ruby passes that, you know, we want to give out to our community to play, right? You know, we're not taking anything, just go play, enjoy the game. And funny enough, I think 100 people registered their interest, but only 15 people had the device that could meet the specs that was needed to play the game. So there were 100 people willing to play the game, but it's only 15 people who can play the game just because of, you know, the hardware they own. So you know, so most games now that we spoke to, you know, we, just because the game is good, I mean, we are happy that the game is good, right? But, you know, if most of our people are unable to play the game due to whatever reason, whether it's, you know, it's a hardware problem or whatsoever, we tend to not invest in those games as well, just because we know that we can't force people to buy a laptop just to play big time, right? So yeah, besides all these grindy games as well, you know, me being a gamer, I would say a casual gamer as well. I do poke a lot into the games in terms of, how the game is going to be. I rarely look at how we can make money off the game, because I don't think that even for an economy to every game is trying to build a balanced economy, right? And I don't foresee that happening. For me, a game economy should happen from a secondary market, which is player to player, right? So it should just be play, not play and own or play and earn or play to earn. It should just be play, right? Just like if you play Diablo or World of Warcraft, right? Like the in-game exchanges didn't come from the game. They didn't make it like in a way that you should sell this and you could make some money doing this, right? It's I spent 12 hours grinding the game, I got this item. You don't spend as much time grinding the game, but you want the item. I'm going to sell to you PayPal $50. Yes or no? No. Let's negotiate, right? But by having an NFT, it makes it a lot simpler. I could just put it on the marketplace, and then or probably you could bid for the item, and we come to an agreement. So it's exactly the same thing that's going on in the secondary market, but right now you have actual ownership of it, and that's basically about it, right? So that earning potential in any game could have earning potential, but with NFTs, it makes so much it makes it so much easier for any transaction to be done, and basically that's basically around it, right? So I don't think that NFTs, or even for some games, to have dual token model or single token model. I actually asked the game, like, why can't you just do it in USDT or USDC, right? Instead of being, having all these extra tokens and having your whole team worry about the token pricing, in the market, and buying back tokens and running the whole tokenomics, just running in USDC. I think it makes perfect sense. But as of now, I think for Impact Realm, the big flag that we see, if the game doesn't have a demo that we can actually try, I think that's a straight on no. And if a game requires too much of a hardware, it's triple A is great. Yes, I had to give them credit for it. But if it's too much for the players to play, we would probably say no as well. Just because that we know that most of our guys are in Southeast Asia, and most of these guys do not own a laptop, right? So yeah, that's the two big thing.
Yeah, I got you. I think accessibility is key, right? I think especially for onboarding a lot of people into like the Web3 ecosystem, it has to be readily accessible by anyone, by any machine. At the end of the day, like we're trying to get people into a new paradigm of gaming where they actually own their assets, and so kind of introducing the idea through like an easily accessible medium is going to be invaluable into the future. So I mean that's like what we're trying to do here too, right? With our mobile first system, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with a lot of phones out there, but yeah, no, that's interesting. So I mean, I guess then like what at this point now, like, what are the next steps for Impact Realm, and what are you guys trying to do? Are you trying to build out your like community? Like, where are you going next? Like, what's the plan?
So right now for Impact Realm, I mean, we are in our fundraising stage, right? I mean, and especially on this whole market condition is going to be pretty tough. But um, we the next step for us actually right now we have built up the whole website, and right now we're actually integrating one of our partners, Metaverse. So we are partnered with a company called Work Adventure or Meta Adventure, and they've actually built an entire metaverse for us to use. It's not a triple A metaverse, right? But it's usable. So what we're actually building now is for a project to come to our platform and like, hey, we want to do an AMA with your community. We want to host it inside a metaverse. Right now, we are making that happen. So we don't want to force them like, hey, you must use the metaverse, but having a metaverse is an option for you as well. And on top of that, we are also building out a SaaS product. So we want to be able to list, any landowners in any meta. I mean, the big dream is to be able to list any landowners in any metaverse to be able to host their events, use their land to host events. So if you own a land in Sandbox and you don't know what to do with the land, right? And I'm telling you, hey, I have an NFT project and they want to use your land to host a party or host an event, we're trying to get a SaaS product to be able to just link it through. Also, obviously, that will take some time, but that's the big goal, right? To be able to link up any metaverses to the platform where any project who wants to use those spaces to do events could actually reach them.
Oh, that's super interesting. So, like, you want to be an index service for rentable metaverse spaces for projects to reach out to.
So yeah, in a way, and we still are okay with going on Discord on
Yeah.
Twitter, right? But so some certain things that you want. Oh, I want to have a private party, right? But NFT integrated, only NFT token holders can use. A metaverse will be a place to use. If I'm a game and I want to distribute, if you say 50 of my NFTs out, right? I can't do it on Discord. I can't do it on Twitter, right? We want to have the platform to be able to, hey, because all these guys who join the AMA or the event, they have an account with us. We already know their addresses because they've keyed in or they put in their address. So we could just randomize it and send it out to anyone. And at the same time, having an event, we want to be able to have analytical statistics for guys, right? Hey, if you're a FPS game, we have more people here who likes FPS games, the number shows and this and that. And yeah, so in a way, as you said, like an index to rent out metaverses. But at the same time, coming with a metaverse, there are a lot of things that we can do, such as NFT ticketing system and NFT dynamic NFT integration. So yeah, we feel that the NFT, the metaverse part will be the future, but now people are still so used to Twitter and Discord. So we just include that in as well. But we do have like the metaverse side for people to try.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that metaverse instances is going to be like the next social media, right? In the sense of like you can communicate with people, leave messages, and have like pretty much the interactions that you do in like a 2D platform in a 3D environment. That's literally what metaverses could be geared for in the future. So then I'm interested in hearing like how have you been going about sourcing partnerships for this endeavor? How have you been reaching out to projects? Like, have you started that process yet? And how easy has that been to get like a response from them?
So there are three parts to there are three people that we always reach out to. We reach out to guilds, games, and the apps as well, right? And right now even metaverses. So one of the guys that we've spoken to, we're trying to get into spatial to talk to the guys like, hey, if a project wants to do an event using spatial, can that be done, right? So that talk is ongoing, but I think as of now, most guilds has really slowed down tremendously. So the user side would drop. We were aiming to hit about 100,000 people within from at the end of 2023, but most guilds now, their community has really died down. So we can't blame them for that. So that's okay. But the amount of the biggest requests that we have for AMAs and events are actually games, and we start to see a gap that there are so many games who wants to tap into, who wants user acquisition, but the amount of guilds are actually slowing down. So we actually do see a problem with that. Hence why we want to build out the community, and we are trying super hard to build it out. Right now we have about 45 guilds who are our partners, and about 40-ish games. Yeah, but end of the day, right? When it's time to actually bring the people to the games and the gamers to meet, all right, we want to be able to make that transition really easy. So yeah, hence we are still building on a lot on the project. But I think the biggest guys that they're hard to reach as of now is actually the guilds, because most of the guilds have either left the space or they've really downsized by quite a significant amount. So there are guilds that we know who are at the peak. They were at 20,000 scholars, 15,000 scholars, and right now they are like in the hundreds. So I think that a lot of the guys have actually left the space, and so I think one of the biggest challenge for Impact Realm would be like, if these guys left the space, what would entice them to come back? In a way, they had tried Web3 gaming. They had one foot in the door, so they are not super foreign to Web3. But what could be done to actually entice these guys to come back? So I think that's one of our biggest challenge as well.
Gotcha. I mean, that's I feel like that's really true with the current like market conditions, right? People are downsizing or leaving the overall ecosystem in general. But I think that like what you just mentioned kind of really attests to what we're trying to build through our Zany list too, right? Like having a contact point, let's say in each of these guilds where you can reach out to for a partnership and like make sure that that's the individual that actually is going to give you a response in a timely fashion. That's like one of the biggest issues that we've been having, at least with some of our partnerships too, is that we'll reach out to someone, we'll wait a while for a response, we might not even get it, and it kind of like disassociates between like, is this the right contact point? Is this not the right contact point? So that's like literally what we're trying to like help solve in this instance, where like we'll allow users to be able to communicate with the right person, set up things that they need to set up, and actually go through with the partnerships and plans along those lines, right? Adding value to your platform and to your community. So it's definitely been interesting, and it's definitely something that we're interested in solving. But that's super cool, right? Like at the end of the day, like I think it's important for all of us to get together and create a sense of community within the Web3 space. I mean, it's just important for us for like the longevity of the overall ecosystem. So kudos to you guys for kind of starting on that and building out that kind of like system as well to try to help like bridge the gap between the guilds and create an environment for them to interact in. I think that's important. And then we hope to be able to be a helpful hand in that and allowing for you to do that into the future as well. So I think that's why we're really excited, and that's why we align pretty well in our endeavors. So
Definitely.
yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, that's like all super interesting stuff, right? I think that at the end of the day, it's always cool to hear about projects that are doubling down on building, even through the bearish sentiment. I mean, it's important for us to still be here. I mean, human nature is cyclical, and it's going to go up and it's going to go down. But through this bear market, we'll have a bull in the outrun. So we're in the outcome. So we'll see how that goes. Dee, Brick, do you guys have anything that you wanted to add to the conversation at all, or any thoughts on the matter? I think it's important for, all of us to communicate. But what do you guys think? Overall sentiments?
I think this is like extremely informative. It's really interesting to hear about this, like the rise and fall of like guilds as a business model and as a community model. It's also really interesting to hear this, like, that's a great point, Jin, that like, okay, the guild might have had 15,000 active scholars at one point, and now it only has a few hundred. But those people have all been onboarded to Web3, like all of the people who left, they've been onboarded to Web3, and they're kind of just potentially waiting for the right opportunity, or at least the right skill sets to jump back in should the opportunity present itself. So I think that's a really interesting like piece of texture about the industry right now that you don't necessarily get as an outsider. And just hearing the rise and maybe not fall, but the rise and then just subsequent diminishing of the guild model is also really interesting as well, because it kind of popped up as a business out of nowhere. Like you're saying, you got into it, kind of just as a matter of interest, as a matter of checking it out, and look where it actually got to and brought you guys. And then things change so quickly after the fact, and then a pivot's necessary. So I don't know. It's also interesting for anyone building in the space like ourselves to just take a note of just how quickly this industry moves. If this past week, I guess, wasn't enough of a reminder of that.
100%. I always find it kind of fascinating to think about that. Like we've only been in this space, at least on Solana, for like a year and a half now. Like things have moved very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's really wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big thing that has actually really like stuck with me in the last year or so, like, when I saw my exits, went from like $40 to $500 in like 3 months, I'm not gonna lie and say that, I don't like the money. I was super interested, right? And, I had a bunch of exits at a point of time, like, and I saw it all, and I made like some 5 to 10x gains. And I think this is where, the guys who are just entering the scene have not experienced a bear market. And, they were so used to all this 10x, 15x, 20x, like, I've known guys who, like, hey, if it's not a 20x project or 50x project, it's not part of our list. I'm like, that's so childish to say, in a way that, you expect, as crypto gets more adopted by the mass, these are things shouldn't be happening. It cannot be happening. It cannot be fluctuating 20-30% a day, 40% a day, and and that's the thing, right? That coming from web two, and then when I speak to guys in the web two space and who are bankers and stuff, and I tell them like, hey, yeah, I did 10x in 6 months. They're like, bro, that's a scam, bro. There's no way, there's no stock, there's no way this happens, right? And I get it, right? Because in a financial market, that's a scam. That's bullshit. That's not possible in a way. And I think there's so many people are just hooked onto this stories of, hey, I bought Dogecoin at this price. I made 100x. You should buy it now, and you should buy it now. And 99% of the guys who bought in loses money, and they're like, crypto is a scam. So, and I always believe that as crypto gets more mature, and we want it to be more mature and more widely used, right? These kind of things are not meant to happen anymore, right? The next bull market right now, like 10x on Bitcoin, the pandemics, from 6K to 60K, right? I don't see going from 60K to 600K in the next bull market, right? But that gap will start to shorten, and as it gets more widely used and more adoptable, I think in a way, for any investor, a certain point of sustainability, or what's the word, like a more stable pricing would actually be beneficial for everyone, right? Instead of jumping into crazy projects and like $1,000, 1,000% yield farming here and there. So I truly believe that this kind of education has to be made. But the guys who was in this ride and lost money, they're like, screw this, I'm out of here, right? They don't want to learn. They're not here to learn. They're just here for the money. And that's the thing with most guilds. Even for myself, when we saw like, holy shit, if I put $100 now, I could ROI in 2.5 weeks at this price, and I start dumping in more money, right? And that was a lesson to learn. But most of these guys that dropped from the 15,000 to a few hundreds, right? They went in, they made some money, and they're like, okay, the time is up, I'm done, time to go. So I think the education has to be there, and especially for the guys who are just entering the Web3 in this market now, or the guys who will be there for the blockchain, make their money from the blockchain games, and they're experiencing the first bear market now. I think it's something really great to actually just weed out projects who are there for to come in fast and get out fast, like a cash grab, and it really shows who are the guys who are in the space continuously building.
Yeah, I think a few points to note on there. I totally agree that like it's almost, as an investor or even more as a business owner, there's something to be said for stability. I mean, you need to take the money when you can get it. Fair, that's one thing. But it's really difficult to build a business, like you're saying, when the price varies so wildly, or when you're trying to do the math on this is either 100x or it's nothing. Like that's actually, it's very difficult to build like sustainable business practices around that. So that's a great point. And like, this industry will genuinely benefit from things going through kind of like a smoothening, like the 10x, 50x, 100x standard for like prices within the space is really actually kind of a difficult thing to work around. And then like you're saying, like low prices showing the builders versus who's here to just make a quick buck. People are saying, that's one of the benefits of FTX blowing up, is that it's another piece of contagion that's out of the system, or at least will be worked out of the system over the coming months. I guess maybe that's true. I think one thing that it feels like I'm seeing personally is that I don't know if you ever truly work out the bad actors in the space. And I think you kind of just go from these periods of stability to instability. And I don't know, it's hard to know exactly when are the good times? Are the good times when there's bad actors in the space but it's a bull market? Or is it the bad actors are out of the space and it's a bear market? Like, which is it that we would prefer? And maybe that's a cynical view to take, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. But I don't know. I will say it is nice to be part of a community that's banding together amidst this chaos. And I think that only comes from people weathering something difficult together. And I will say there's a blessing to that as well.
I do agree with what Rick said though. Like I think it all just boils down to human greed, and like greed is never gonna go away. There are still gonna be those 5, 10, 50, 100x conditions that we're gonna see in the coming bull market, because yeah, dude, that's just humans. Like things will still go to 100x because hundreds of thousands of people are fervently desperate to get that amount of money that they see other people getting it, and there are going to be builders that will manifest it into reality, and that's just the way it goes. I think there's something to be said in a bull market whether the next bull market will be better than this current bull market that we've just been through, but
Yeah.
market cycles just work out the way it is, and how it's supposed to be in terms of how we feel like crypto is going to mature during the next bull market. Yeah, I don't think that's a question that it's definitely going to mature in a way that people will be getting smarter, but you also got to realize though that people that left have left, and people who are going to come into the next bull market are going to be the same amount of people that have knew nothing and got scammed in that previous bull market. So yeah, the wheel just keeps turning until a point where the industry matures by itself, be it
Hmm.
in 10 years or 20 years, we'll never know. But um, it is true that blockchain still are able to give real world problems some use cases in a way that it might mature to the general adoption, and that's what we're here for. We're not here for the finance bros who are trying to make 100x and all of that.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of both of y'all's sentiment, but I'd have to take it to a different step where I'd say that I think it comes from a mature market will come from education, right? And I think the people who stay within the ecosystem who yeah, I think I agree with most of both of y'all's sentiment, but I'd have to take it to a different step where I'd say that I think it comes from a mature market will come from education, right? And I think the people who stay within the ecosystem who go through the bearish sentiment and like build through it will be the good actors that help to educate the new usherance of users who come in after that point. You're right. There's always going to be new people coming in who don't necessarily understand like the space itself, and will be looking for those quick flips. But I think it also comes along the lines of like if you have an educated user base who understands that that is not something sustainable, then they won't invest or spend their money in it. I'm sure there's always going to be some people who are always interested in just a quick flip, and there's always going to be bad actors in the space. But at the same time, if we make it a standard that the good actors are the ones that receive the funding, the investing, and the people actually like go to and use, I think it'll deter bad actors just from a natural like sentiment. For example, I was looking at this protocol before. It was like Abracadabra, I think, or Wonderland. It was like a DeFi protocol where it was like you can get 88,000% APY. And I looked at that and like every like ounce, every ounce of being in myself shivered because I was like everything that I've learned from school, from like any class, has taught me that this is something that is unsustainable and that will explode at one point. And I never put my money into it, and it collapsed in like a week or two after that. So I mean, like that just comes from like an innate understanding or feeling that you have associated with something that you've learned before. And I think that as we push that into the future, we're going to have to be able to be those individuals that actually advocate for good practices and for educating and onboarding new users. And that's just my optimistic outlook. But I'm an optimist by nature, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, I do agree, right? The education is going to play a big part in onboarding people to crypto. Like what you said about Wonderland, right? And Magic, there's always been a part of me that wants to just try out. Like if I put $1,000 and it's like 88,000, I could just like ROI in 3 months, in 3 days, and let me take my money out and let it roll, right? And but the thing is, like all this comes from a place of greed. I wouldn't disagree. I would like say to you, it comes from a place of greed, right? But the more projects that you see actually just like really get burned down, and it comes with experience as well, right? Once you experience this kind of stuff, you'll be able to at least educate the next bunch of people coming in. Like, when they come in, hey, Jin, I saw this project, they're offering, 8,000 APY. And I'm like, bro, have you heard about this project that went bust doing this? Have you heard about, this project that went bust doing this, right? Why don't you study on those projects and see? So yeah, I really do agree that greed is not going to go anywhere. All right, greed, right? Whether it's Web 2 or Web 3, But yeah, I think some sort of education has to be put into place, and that is what I felt was really really missing in the blockchain gaming space because everyone was just advertising on how much you could make. Um, and half the guys who own, I would just take Eggsy for an example, right? Or half the guys who were in Eggsy were just creating rolling account just because that's part of what you need to do to get a chance to play the game. They didn't know what is rolling. They didn't know what is gas fee. They didn't know what is SLP. They didn't know what was anything. They were just like, okay, if I take this and today's price is this, I'm gonna sell it for this and I get this done, right? And for guilds, they were just fitting up NFT spots, right? Just like I have 50 teams, I always want to fit it up. I don't care if they understand what's going on. As long as they play the game, I get my card. What you do with the game is entirely up to you. So I think as of now, where as guilds start to really move into a more, I would say like a more non-business mindset. It will definitely still be a business in a way, but for a more business mindset, and guys start to take responsibility for actually, teaching their guild members or their community about crypto or stuff like that. I think that's going to be really beneficial for the blockchain space in the future. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's education. This all rests on the back of education. Guys, thank you for joining today. Jin, thank you as well. Unfortunately, Didi and I have to hop into another meeting right now, but this has been super informative. Honestly, I've learned a fair amount about how guilds have kind of weathered this past year, and thank you, Jin, for joining us here.
you're welcome, buddy. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. For those of you guys listening into the recording, make sure you go check out Impact Realm and kind of learn more about what they're doing. And then if you haven't yet, make sure you check out Zanilist as well and kind of apply for Zanilist if you want to be a part of kind of a comprehensive Web3 ecosystem where we put people like Jin and Impact Realm and ourselves together in a room and have conversations like this. So tune in if you get a chance to and sign up. Thanks everyone for attending, and we'll talk to you guys later.